Courier import and export rules. Rule 1. FAQs. Q1. What are the courier import and export rules? They are special rules made under the Customs Act 1960 to regulate import and export of goods through courier mode instead of normal cargo procedures. Q2. What is Rule 1 about? Rule 1 deals with short title, extent, commencement. In simple terms, it tells us the name of the rules, where they apply, and when they came into force. Q3. What is the official name mentioned in Rule 1? The rules are called Courier Imports and Exports, Electronic Declaration and Processing, Regulations, 2010. Q4. To which area do these rules apply? These rules apply to the whole of India, including all customs airports, courier terminals, and international courier hubs. Q5. From when are these rules effective? They came into force from the date notified by the central government in the official gazette. Q6. Why is Rule 1 important? Rule 1 is important because it legally introduces the courier regulations, confirms nationwide applicability, gives authority to customs officers to implement courier procedures. Q7. Do these rules apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 1 confirms that the regulations apply to both courier imports and courier exports. Q8. Who is governed by these rules? These rules apply to authorized courier companies, importers and exporters using courier services, customs officers handling courier consignments. Q9. Are courier goods treated differently from normal cargo? Yes. Courier goods are cleared under simplified and faster procedures, but still remain subject to customs law. Q10. Does Rule 1 provide any exemptions? No. Rule 1 only introduces the regulations. Exemptions and procedures are covered in later rules. Courier import and export rules. Rule 2. Definitions. FAQs. Q1. What is Rule 2 about? Rule 2 explains the important definitions used in the courier import and export rules. These definitions help in correctly understanding and applying the rules. Q2. Why are definitions under Rule 2 important? Definitions ensure uniform interpretation of the rules, no confusion in legal meaning, proper implementation by customs authorities. Q3. What does authorized courier mean? An authorized courier is a courier company approved by customs to import or export goods through courier mode in accordance with the regulations. Q4. Who grants authorization to a courier? Authorization is granted by the customs authorities under the Customs Act 1962 after fulfillment of prescribed conditions. Q5. What is meant by courier imports? Courier imports refer to goods brought into India through an authorized courier service instead of regular cargo. Q6. What is meant by courier exports? Courier exports mean goods sent out of India through an authorized courier using the simplified courier procedure. Q7. What does electronic declaration mean? Electronic declaration refers to online filing of courier bills of entry or shipping bills using the customs electronic system. Q8. What is customs automated system? It means the electronic system used by customs for processing courier documents, assessment, and clearance. Q9. Who is a consignor? A consignor is the person who sends goods for export through a courier. Q10. Who is a consignee? A consignee is the person to whom goods are imported or delivered in India. Q11. What is meant by courier bill of entry? It is a simplified customs declaration filed electronically by the authorized courier for imported goods. Q12. What is meant by courier shipping bill? It is a simplified export declaration filed electronically for goods exported through courier mode. Q13. Does Rule 2 cover all terms used in the regulations? Yes. Rule 2 defines key terms used throughout the courier import and export rules unless the context requires otherwise. Q14. Are undefined terms interpreted differently? No. Any term not defined in Rule 2 will have the meaning assigned under the Customs Act 1962 or related rules. Q15. Can incorrect understanding of definitions cause legal issues? Yes. Wrong interpretation may lead to incorrect declarations, penalties, delay or rejection of courier clearance, courier import and export rules, Rule 3, registration of authorized courier, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 3 about? Rule 3 deals with the registration and approval of an authorized courier, who is allowed to import or export goods through courier mode. Q2. Who can apply for registration under Rule 3? Any courier company or operator engaged in international courier services can apply for registration with customs. Q3. Where should an application for registration be made? The application must be made to the Principal Commissioner or Commissioner of Customs having jurisdiction over the courier terminal. Q4. Under which law is the courier registered? Registration is granted under the Customs Act 1962 and the Courier Import and Export Rules. Q5. What is meant by an authorized courier? An authorized courier is a courier company that has been approved by customs to clear import and export goods through courier procedures. Q6. Is registration mandatory for courier operations? Yes. No courier can handle international import or export consignments without customs registration under Rule 3. Q7. What conditions must be fulfilled for registration? The courier must have a reliable business setup, possess proper infrastructure, follow customs procedures, comply with all legal and security requirements. Q8. Can customs refuse registration? Yes. Customs may reject the application if the courier fails to meet prescribed conditions or past compliance is unsatisfactory. Q9. Is registration valid for all customs stations? No. Registration is generally station-specific. Separate approval may be required for operations at different courier terminals. Q10. Can registration be cancelled? Yes. Registration can be suspended or cancelled if the courier violates customs laws, makes false declarations, fails to comply with rules or conditions. Q11. Is the courier responsible for compliance? Yes. The authorized courier is legally responsible for correct declarations, proper documentation, payment of applicable duties. Q12. Does Rule 3 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Registration under Rule 3 is required for both courier imports and courier exports. Q13. Can registration be renewed or amended? Yes. Registration may be renewed, modified, or updated as per customs instructions or changes in operations. Q14. What happens if a courier operates without registration? Such operation is illegal and may result in penalties, seizure of goods, blacklisting of the courier. Q15. Why is Rule 3 important? Rule 3 ensures accountability of courier companies, secure and controlled courier movement, faster but lawful clearance of courier consignments, courier import and export rules, Rule 4, obligations of authorized courier, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 4 about? Rule 4 lays down the duties and responsibilities, obligations of an authorized courier while handling courier imports and exports. Q2. Why are obligations of an authorized courier specified? To ensure legal compliance with customs laws, correct declaration of goods, prevention of misuse of courier mode. Q3. What is the main responsibility of an authorized courier? The courier must file correct and complete electronic declarations, ensure goods comply with customs law. Q4. Is the courier responsible for the correctness of information? Yes. The authorized courier is fully responsible for the accuracy of details filed in courier bills of entry or shipping bills. Q5. What documents must be maintained by the courier? The courier must maintain import-export records, consignment details, supporting documents, invoice, packing list, etc. Q6. How long must records be preserved? Records must be preserved for the period prescribed by customs for audit or verification. Q7. Is the courier required to assist customs officers? Yes, the courier must produce documents when asked, facilitate examination of goods, cooperate during inquiry or inspection. Q8. Can an authorized courier subcontract its work? No. An authorized courier cannot subcontract its customs-related responsibilities without permission of customs. Q9. Is the courier liable for prohibited or misdeclared goods? Yes. If prohibited or misdeclared goods are found, the authorized courier may be held liable under the Customs Act 1962. Q10. Must the courier follow other customs laws also? Yes. Apart from courier rules, the courier must comply with Customs Act 1962, allied acts and notifications, instructions issued by customs. Q11. What happens if the courier violates Rule 4? Violation may lead to suspension or cancellation of registration, penalties and legal action, blacklisting by customs. Q12. Is the courier responsible for duty payment? Yes. The authorized courier must ensure proper assessment and payment of customs duty on behalf of the importer or exporter. Q13. Does Rule 4 apply to exports also? Yes. Obligations apply to both courier imports and courier exports. Q14. Can customs impose additional conditions? Yes. Customs authorities may impose additional conditions to safeguard revenue and security. Q15. Why is Rule 4 important? Rule 4 ensures accountability of courier operators, safe and lawful clearance of courier consignments, protection of revenue and national security. Courier import and export rules. Rule 5. Clearance of courier import goods. FAQs. Q1. What is Rule 5 about? Rule 5 explains the procedure for clearance of goods imported through courier mode. Q2. Who files the declaration for courier imports? The authorized courier files the courier bill of entry electronically on behalf of the importer. Q3. What type of declaration is required? A simplified electronic declaration containing details such as description of goods, value, quantity, consignee details. Q4. Are all courier import goods assessed by customs? Yes. All courier import consignments are subject to customs assessment, though the procedure is simplified. Q5. Can customs examine courier import goods? Yes. Customs officers may examine any courier consignment if required for verification, valuation, or security. Q6. Are prohibited goods allowed under courier imports? No. Prohibited goods cannot be imported through courier mode under any circumstances. Q7. What happens if misdeclaration is found? If misdeclaration is detected, goods may be detained or seized. Penalties may be imposed. Courier registration may be affected. Q8. Is customs duty payable on courier imports? Yes. Applicable customs duty must be paid before clearance unless the goods are exempt. Q9. Who is responsible for duty payment? The authorized courier ensures payment of duty on behalf of the importer. Q10. Are personal imports covered under Rule 5? Yes. Personal consignments imported through courier are also cleared under Rule 5, subject to applicable limits and conditions. Q11. Can courier imports be cleared without documents? No. Supporting documents like invoice or declaration are required, even under simplified procedures. Q12. Which law governs action for violations? Any violation is dealt with under the Customs Act, 1962 and allied rules. Q13. Does Rule 5 allow faster clearance? Yes. The objective of Rule 5 is speedy and efficient clearance of courier import consignments. Q14. Does Rule 5 override other customs laws? No. Rule 5 operates subject to the Customs Act, 1962 and other applicable laws. Q15. Why is Rule 5 important? Rule 5 ensures quick clearance of courier imports, proper assessment and control, balance between facilitation and enforcement. Courier import and export rules, Rule 6, clearance of courier export goods, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 6 about? Rule 6 lays down the procedure for clearance of goods exported through courier mode. Q2. Who files documents for courier exports? The authorized courier files the courier shipping bill electronically on behalf of the exporter. Q3. What is a courier shipping bill? It is a simplified electronic export declaration containing description of goods, value and quantity, exporter details, destination country. Q4. Are all courier export goods examined by customs? No. Routine examination is not mandatory, but customs may examine consignments on a selective or risk basis. Q5. Are prohibited or restricted goods allowed for export? No. Prohibited goods cannot be exported through courier mode. Restricted goods require valid permission or license. Q6. Is customs permission required before export? Yes. Export clearance is granted by customs after verification of the courier shipping bill. Q7. Are export duties applicable on courier exports? Generally, export duty is not applicable, but if applicable under law, it must be paid. Q8. Who is responsible for compliance in courier exports? The authorized courier is responsible for correct declaration, compliance with export laws, submission of documents. Q9. Can customs stop or detain courier export goods? Yes. Customs may detain or stop goods if misdeclaration is suspected, goods are prohibited or restricted, legal requirements are not fulfilled. Q thus. Are incentives like drawback or benefits allowed? Courier exports are generally not eligible for export incentive schemes unless specifically permitted. Q11. Which law governs violations in courier exports? Violations are dealt with under the Customs Act, 1962 and allied export laws. Q12. Does Rule 6 apply to commercial exports? Yes. Commercial consignments exported through courier are covered under Rule 6, subject to prescribed value limits. Q13. Can personal gifts be exported by courier? Yes. Personal gifts and documents may be exported through courier, subject to customs rules. Q14. Does Rule 6 ensure faster export clearance? Yes. Rule 6 aims to simplify and speed up export clearance through courier mode. Q15. Why is Rule 6 important? Rule 6 ensures smooth export of goods through courier, legal compliance, effective customs control with facilitation. Courier import and export rules, Rule 7, disposal of undelivered or uncleared goods, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 7 about? Rule 7 deals with the disposal of courier goods that are not cleared or not delivered to the consignee exporter within the prescribed time. Q2. What are undelivered courier goods? Undelivered goods are those which could not be delivered to the consignee due to reasons like wrong or incomplete address, consignee not traceable, refusal to accept delivery. Q3. What are uncleared courier goods? Uncleared goods are consignments not cleared from customs because of non-payment of duty, incomplete documents, legal or compliance issues. Q4. Who is responsible for such goods? The authorized courier is responsible for the custody and handling of undelivered or uncleared goods until disposal. Q5. How long can such goods be kept pending? Goods may be kept for a prescribed period as allowed by customs. After that, disposal action can be initiated. Q6. What options are available for disposal? With permission of customs, the goods may be returned to the sender, re-exported, destroyed, auctioned if permitted by law. Q7. Is customs approval mandatory for disposal? Yes. No disposal can take place without approval of customs authorities. Q8. Can prohibited goods be returned or auctioned? No. Prohibited goods cannot be returned or auctioned. They are dealt with strictly as per law, usually by destruction. Q9. Who bears the cost of storage and disposal? Generally, the authorized courier or the importer-exporter bears the cost, as decided by customs. Q10. What happens if goods are abandoned by the consignee? If goods are abandoned, customs may allow disposal after completing legal formalities. Q11. Does Rule 7 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 7 applies to both courier import goods and courier export goods. Q12. Is duty refundable if goods are re-exported? Refund or non-levy of duty depends on conditions prescribed by customs and fulfillment of procedures. Q13. Which law governs action during disposal? All actions are governed by the Customs Act, 1962 and relevant regulations. Q14. Can the courier be penalized for non-compliance? Yes. Failure to follow Rule 7 may result in penalties, suspension or cancellation of courier registration. Q15. Why is Rule 7 important? Rule 7 ensures proper handling of abandoned or uncleared goods, prevention of congestion at courier terminals, legal and transparent disposal of goods, courier import and export rules, Rule 8, power to relax, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 8 about? Rule 8 gives power to customs authorities to relax or waive certain procedural requirements in deserving cases. Q2. Who has the power to relax the rules? The Principal Commissioner or Commissioner of Customs has the authority to relax provisions of the courier rules. Q13. Why is the power to relax provided? This power is provided to avoid hardship, deal with exceptional or genuine cases, ensure smooth trade facilitation. Q4. Can all rules be relaxed under Rule 8? No. Only procedural requirements may be relaxed. Substantive legal provisions cannot be waived. Q5. Is relaxation automatic? No. Relaxation is not a matter of right. It is granted only on request and based on merits of the case. Q6. In what situations can relaxation be granted? Examples include technical or system-related issues, minor procedural lapses, genuine hardship beyond the control of the courier or importer-exporter. Q7. Does relaxation affect customs duty? No. Relaxation does not waive customs duty or taxes unless specifically permitted by law. Q8. Is a written order required for relaxation? Yes. Relaxation must be granted through a written and reasoned order by the competent customs authority. Q9. Can relaxation be withdrawn later? Yes. If misuse or misrepresentation is found, customs can withdraw the relaxation and take legal action. Q10. Does Rule 8 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 8 applies to both courier import and courier export procedures. Q11. Can authorized couriers request relaxation? Yes. Authorized couriers may apply for relaxation on behalf of their clients. Q12. Does Rule 8 override the Customs Act? No. Rule 8 is subject to the Customs Act, 1962 and cannot override statutory provisions. Q13. Is relaxation time-bound? Yes. Relaxation is usually case-specific and time-bound depending on the order passed. Q14. Can relaxation be challenged? Yes. Any improper relaxation order may be reviewed or challenged under applicable law. Q15. Why is rule art important? Rule art ensures flexibility in genuine cases, balance between control and facilitation, fair implementation of Courier regulations, Courier import and export rules, Rule 9, penalty, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 9 about? Rule 9 provides for penalties in case of violation of the Courier import and export rules. Q2. Who can be penalized under Rule 9? Penalties may be imposed on authorized couriers, importers or exporters using courier services, any person involved in contravention of the rules. Q13. For what type of violations can penalty be imposed? Penalty may be imposed for incorrect or false declaration, non-compliance with procedures, handling prohibited or restricted goods, violation of any provision of courier rules. Q4. Is penalty automatic for every mistake? No. Penalty is imposed after due process, considering nature of violation, intention, mens rea, gravity of offense. Q5. Under which law is the penalty imposed? Penalty is imposed under the Customs Act 1962. Read with the Courier import and export rules. Q6. What types of penalties can be imposed? Depending on the case, penalties may include monetary penalty, suspension or cancellation of courier registration, confiscation of goods. Q7. Can penalty be imposed on courier for importer's fault? Yes. If the authorized courier fails to exercise due diligence, penalty may be imposed even if the fault is of the importer. Q8. Is opportunity of hearing provided? Yes. Principles of natural justice apply, and the person must be given an opportunity of being heard. Q9. Can penalties under Rule 9 be appealed? Yes. Penalty orders can be appealed under the appellate provisions of the customs law. Q10. Does Rule 9 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 9 applies to both courier imports and courier exports. Q11. Is there a fixed amount of penalty under Rule 9? No. Penalty amount is not fixed and depends on the facts and circumstances of each case. Q12. Can multiple penalties be imposed? Yes. In serious cases, more than one action, penalty plus suspension cancellation, may be taken. Q13. Does minor procedural lapse attract penalty? Generally, minor technical lapses may not attract penalty, especially if there is no revenue loss or mala fide intention. Q14. Can penalty be waived? Penalty may be reduced or waived in deserving cases as per law or by exercising discretion. Q15. Why is Rule 9 important? Rule 9 ensures compliance with courier regulations, accountability of authorized couriers and users, deterrence against misuse of courier mode, courier import and export rules, Rule 10, savings, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule thus about? Rule 10 is a saving clause. It protects actions taken under earlier rules and ensures continuity of law. Q2. What does saving mean in legal terms? Saving means earlier actions remain valid even after new rules come into force. Q13. What kind of actions are saved under Rule 10? Actions such as registrations granted, permissions issued, proceedings started, orders passed, under earlier courier rules are not affected. Q4. Does Rule 10 cancel old actions? No. Rule 10 does not cancel or invalidate anything lawfully done earlier. Q5. Why is rule thus necessary? It avoids legal confusion, re-registration or reapproval, restarting of proceedings. Q6. Are authorized couriers required to apply again due to new rules? No. Existing registrations and approvals continue unless specifically withdrawn or cancelled. Q7. What happens to ongoing cases or inquiries? They continue as if the new rules had not affected them, unless customs decides otherwise as per law. Q8. Does Rule 10 protect penalties already imposed? Yes. Penalties or actions already taken remain valid if they were lawful. Q9. Can customs still take action under the new rules? Yes. Future actions are governed by the new rules, while past actions are protected by Rule 10. Q thus. Does Rule 10 override the Customs Act? No. Rule 10 is subject to the Customs Act 1962 and does not override statutory provisions. Q11. Does Rule 10 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. It applies to courier imports and courier exports. Q12. Can saved actions be challenged? Yes. Saved actions may still be challenged through appeal or legal process, if otherwise permissible. Q13. Does Rule 10 create new rights? No. Rule 10 does not create new rights. It only preserves existing ones. Q14. Is Rule 10 procedural or substantive? Rule 10 is procedural in nature, ensuring smooth legal transition. Q15. Why is Rule 10 important for exams? Because it explains continuity of law, prevents retrospective invalidity, is commonly asked as a conceptual question. Courier import and export rules, Rule 11, repeal, FAQs. Q1. What is Rule 11 about? Rule 11 provides for repeal of earlier courier rules regulations that were in force before the current courier import and export rules. Q2. What does repeal mean? Repeal means old rules are cancelled or replaced by the new rules. Q3. Why is repeal necessary? Repeal is necessary to remove outdated procedures, avoid conflict between old and new rules, bring a uniform and updated legal framework. Q4. Does repeal cancel everything done under old rules? No. Lawful actions already taken are protected. This protection is ensured through saving provisions. Q5. What happens to registrations issued under old rules? Registrations, permissions, and approvals continue to remain valid unless cancelled under law. Q6. Are ongoing proceedings affected by repeal? No. Ongoing proceedings continue as per law and are not invalidated merely due to repeal. Q7. From when does repeal take effect? Repeal takes effect from the date the new rules come into force as notified by the government. Q8. Does Rule 11 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Repeal applies to both courier import and courier export regulations. Q9. Can customs still rely on old rules after repeal? No. Future actions must follow the new rules, but past actions remain protected. Q thus. Does Rule 11 override the Customs Act? No. Rule 11 operates subject to the Courier Import and Export Rules, Rule 12, Power to Issue Instructions Clarifications, FAQs. Q1. What is Rule 12 about? Rule 12 gives power to the central government customs authorities to issue instructions, directions, or clarifications for proper implementation of the courier rules. Q2. Why is Rule 12 necessary? Rule 12 is necessary to remove practical difficulties, clarify procedural doubts, ensure uniform implementation across India. Q3. Who can issue instructions under Rule 12? Instructions may be issued by Central Government or Central Board of Indirect Taxes Customs (CBIC) through customs authorities. Q4. Are these instructions legally binding? Yes. Instructions issued under Rule 12 are binding on customs officers and authorized couriers, as long as they are within the law. Q5. Can instructions override the rules? No. Instructions cannot override or contradict the rules or the law. They're meant only to clarify or facilitate implementation. Q6. What type of matters are covered by such instructions? Instructions may relate to filing of electronic declarations, documentation requirements, operational procedures at courier terminals, risk management and examination norms. Q7. Can procedures change through instructions? Yes. Procedural aspects may be modified or streamlined through instructions to improve efficiency. Q8. Do authorized couriers have to follow these instructions? Yes. Authorized couriers must strictly follow instructions and circulars issued under Rule 12. Q9. What happens if instructions are not followed? Non-compliance may lead to penal action, suspension or cancellation of courier registration, proceedings under the Customs Act 1962. Q. Thus, are these instructions applicable nationwide? Yes. Instructions issued under Rule 12 apply uniformly across India, unless stated otherwise. Q11. Can instructions be withdrawn or amended? Yes. Instructions can be modified, superseded, or withdrawn at any time by the issuing authority. Q12. Do instructions apply to both imports and exports? Yes. They apply to both courier import and courier export procedures. Q13. Can courts ignore such instructions? Courts may ignore or strike down instructions if they are contrary to law or beyond authority. Q14. Are exam questions asked from Rule 12? Yes. Rule 12 is important for exams because it tests understanding of delegated powers, difference between rules and instructions. Q15. Why is Rule 12 important? Rule 12 ensures flexibility in administration, quick resolution of operational issues, smooth functioning of courier clearance system, courier import and export rules, Rule 13, transitional provisions residual matters, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 13 about? Rule 13 deals with transitional or residual matters, ensuring that implementation of the courier rules remains smooth even where specific situations are not expressly provided for. Q2. Why is Rule 13 included in the rules? Rule 13 is included to prevent legal or procedural gaps, ensure continuity in administration, allow customs to manage unforeseen situations. Q13. What are transitional provisions? Transitional provisions are rules that help shift from old procedures to new ones, protect ongoing actions and processes. Q4. Does Rule 13 create new procedures? No. Rule 13 does not create new substantive procedures. It supports implementation of existing rules. Q5. Who exercises authority under Rule 13? The customs authorities exercise powers under Rule 13 while acting within the framework of the law. Q6. Can Rule 13 override other rules? No. Rule 13 is subordinate and supplementary. It cannot override any express provision of the courier rules. Q7. Does Rule 13 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 13 applies to courier imports and courier exports. Q8. Can Rule 13 be used in case of ambiguity? Yes. Rule 13 helps customs deal with ambiguities or procedural difficulties subject to law. Q9. Is Rule 13 important for authorized couriers? Yes. It ensures no disruption in courier operations, continuity of permissions and processes. Q. Thus, does Rule 13 affect penalties or liabilities? No. Penalties and liabilities continue to be governed by specific penalty provisions and the Customs Act 1962. Q11. Are actions taken under Rule 13 appealable? Yes. Any order or action taken under Rule 13 can be challenged through legal or appellate remedies if provided under law. Q12. Does Rule 13 have exam relevance? Yes. It is important for Conceptual questions. Understanding transitional and residual clauses. Q13. Can Rule 13 be applied retrospectively? Generally, procedural aspects may apply retrospectively, but substantive rights are not affected unless expressly provided. Q14. Is Rule 13 a standalone provision? No. It must be read along with the other Courier rules. Q15. Why is Rule 13 important? Rule 13 ensures smooth administration, legal continuity, practical flexibility without violating the law. Courier import and export rules, Rule 14, difficulties in implementation power to remove difficulties, FAQs. Note, in many legal and exam-oriented texts, Rule 14 deals with the power to remove difficulties in implementing the Courier rules. Q1. What is Rule 14 about? Rule 14 gives power to the central government customs authorities to remove difficulties that may arise while implementing the Courier import and export rules. Q2. Why is Rule 14 required? Rule 14 is required to address practical problems, ensure smooth implementation of the rules, avoid disruption in Courier operations. Q3. What kind of difficulties can be removed? Difficulties such as procedural gaps, operational issues, transitional problems, system or implementation challenges. Q4. Who has the power under Rule 14? The central government or competent customs authority has the power to issue orders to remove difficulties. Q5. Can Rule 14 be used to change the law? No. Rule 14 cannot amend, override, or contradict the provisions of the rules or the law. Q6. Are orders issued under Rule 14 binding? Yes. Orders issued to remove difficulties are binding, provided they are within legal limits. Q7. Does Rule 14 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 14 applies to Courier import as well as Courier export procedures. Q8. Is this power permanent? Generally, the power to remove difficulties is time-bound or transitional, meant mainly for initial or exceptional situations. Q9. Can authorized couriers rely on Rule 14? Yes. Authorized couriers may seek clarification or relief where genuine difficulty exists, but they cannot claim it as a right. Q10. Does Rule 14 affect penalties? No. Rule 14 does not waive penalties or liabilities arising from violations. Q11. Is a written order required? Yes. Any action taken under Rule 14 must be supported by a written order or instruction. Q12. Can courts review actions under Rule 14? Yes. Courts can review or strike down actions taken under Rule 14 if they exceed authority. Q13. Does Rule 14 override the Customs Act? No. Rule 14 operates subject to the Customs Act 1962. Q14. Is Rule 14 important for exams? Yes. It is often tested to check understanding of delegated legislation, power to remove difficulties. Q15. Why is Rule 14 important? Rule 14 ensures flexibility in administration, smooth transition and implementation, effective functioning of Courier clearance system, Courier import and export rules, Rule 15, residual miscellaneous provisions, FAQs. Q1. What is Rule 15 about? Rule 15 deals with miscellaneous or residual matters connected with Courier imports and exports that are not expressly covered elsewhere in the rules. Q2. Why is Rule 15 included? Rule 15 is included to avoid legal or procedural gaps, ensure continuity in administration, support effective implementation of the Courier rules. Q3. Does Rule 15 create new rights or obligations? No. Rule 15 does not create new substantive rights or liabilities. It supports and supplements existing provisions. Q4. Who can act under Rule 15? Customs authorities may act under Rule 15 while exercising their lawful powers for proper administration. Q5. Can Rule 15 override other rules? No. Rule 15 is subordinate and supplementary and cannot override any specific provision of the Courier rules. Q6. Does Rule 15 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 15 applies to both Courier import and Courier export matters. Q7. Can Rule 15 be used to resolve ambiguities? Yes. Rule 15 helps in addressing procedural ambiguities when no specific rule exists subject to law. Q8. Does Rule 15 affect penalties or enforcement? No. Penalties and enforcement actions continue to be governed by the relevant penalty provisions and the Customs Act 1962. Q9. Are actions taken under Rule 15 appealable? Yes. Any order or action under Rule 15 is subject to appeal or judicial review as provided by law. Q. Thus, is Rule 15 procedural or substantive? Rule 15 is procedural in nature. Q. 11. Can authorized couriers rely on Rule 15 as a right? No. Rule 15 cannot be claimed as a matter of right. It is applied at the discretion of authorities within legal limits. Q. 12. Does Rule 15 have exam importance? Yes. It is important for conceptual questions, understanding residual or miscellaneous clauses. Q. 13. Can Rule 15 be applied retrospectively? Generally, procedural aspects may apply retrospectively, but substantive rights are not affected. Q. 14. Is Rule 15 read independently? No. Rule 15 must be read together with all other Courier rules. Q. 15. Why is Rule 15 important? Rule 15 ensures no administrative vacuum, smooth functioning of Courier operations, legal continuity and clarity. Courier import and export rules, Rule 16, repeal and saving final provision, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 16 about? Rule 16 is the final provision of the rules. It deals with repeal of earlier Courier-related provisions, if applicable, and saving of actions already taken. Q. Though, what does repeal mean here? Repeal means earlier Courier rules or provisions stand withdrawn or replaced by the present rules. Q. 13. What does saving mean? Saving means past actions remain valid. Registrations, permissions, approvals, and proceedings already done are not affected. Q. 4. Why is Rule 16 necessary? Rule 16 is necessary to avoid legal uncertainty, prevent invalidation of earlier lawful actions, ensure smooth transition to the new rules. Q. 5. Are existing authorized couriers affected by Rule 16? No. Existing registrations and approvals continue unless cancelled or suspended under law. Q. 6. What happens to pending cases or inquiries? All pending proceedings continue as if the new rules had not adversely affected them. Q. 7. Does Rule 16 cancel penalties already imposed? No. Penalties or orders already passed remain valid if lawfully imposed. Q. 8. From when does Rule 16 take effect? Rule 16 takes effect from the date the rules come into force as notified by the government. Q. 9. Does Rule 16 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 16 applies to Courier import as well as Courier export matters. Q. Thus, can customs rely on old rules after Rule 16? For past actions, yes, saved. For future actions, no, only the current rules apply. Q. 11. Does Rule 16 override other rules? No. Rule 16 is procedural and transitional and does not override substantive provisions. Q. 12. Is Rule 16 subject to the Customs Act? Yes. Rule 16 operates subject to the Customs Act 1962. Q. 13. Can actions saved under Rule 16 be challenged? Yes. Saved actions may still be challenged through appeal or judicial review, if permitted under law. Q14. Is Rule 16 important for exams? Yes. It is commonly tested to check understanding of repeal versus saving, transitional provisions. Q15. Why is Rule 16 important? Rule 16 ensures legal continuity, protection of past lawful actions, smooth enforcement of Courier rules, Courier import and export rules, Rule 17, application of other laws residual compliance, FAQs. Q8. What is Rule 17 about? Rule 17 clarifies that courier imports and exports must also comply with other applicable laws, not just the courier rules. Q2. Why is Rule 17 important? It ensures that courier mode is not misused to bypass other laws. All statutory requirements continue to apply. Q13. Which other laws can apply under Rule 17? Depending on the goods, laws such as foreign trade, development regulation, laws, wildlife, drug or hazardous goods laws, intellectual property rights laws may apply. Q4. Does courier mode give exemption from other laws? No. Courier mode only simplifies customs procedure. It does not grant exemption from other legal requirements. Q5. Who must ensure compliance with other laws? Both authorized courier and importer bata exporter must ensure full compliance. Q6. Can customs stop a courier consignment for violation of another law? Yes. Customs may detain, seize, or prohibit clearance if any other applicable law is violated. Q7. Does Rule 17 apply to prohibited and restricted goods? Yes. Prohibited goods remain prohibited, and restricted goods require valid licenses permissions. Q8. Is customs bound to check compliance with all laws? Yes. Customs acts as a border enforcement agency and ensures compliance with all applicable laws. Q9. What happens if there is conflict between courier rules and another law? The other substantive law prevails, and courier rules operate subject to it. Q10. Does Rule 17 apply to both imports and exports? Yes. Rule 17 applies to courier imports as well as courier exports. Q11. Can penalty be imposed for violation of other laws? Yes. Violations may attract action under the concerned law and or the Customs Act 1962. Q12. Is Rule 17 procedural or substantive? Rule 17 is clarificatory and procedural, reinforcing legal compliance. Q13. Is Rule 17 relevant for exams? Yes. It is commonly tested to assess understanding that courier rules do not override other laws. Q14. Can authorized couriers rely on courier rules as a defense? No. Courier rules cannot be used as a defense against violation of other laws. Q15. Why is Rule 17 important? Rule 17 ensures holistic legal compliance, protection of national interest, proper regulation of courier trade. Subscribe for regular updates and expert content. Knowledge grows when you subscribe. Subscribe to learn something new every day.